variety of topics again. So we focus not only on technology, but we'll also have something about legal and financial issues, and one talk about security. The schedule for today will be 20 minutes for a talk, 10 minutes question and answer, and 10 minutes break. What I should add is, if in the break someone goes outside and to have a smoke, please be quiet, the neighbors don't like noise. And I think that's it. We can start with our first talk. Stefan Rapp will talk about legal stuff in open source. And we know much of IoT is open source. So welcome to the stage, Stefan Rapp.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Legal stuff sounds boring, right? It basically is. I used to be a lawyer, so I know. But maybe I hit the right button now. Yeah, okay. So let's start out with something like this. And I want you to think hard. What do those guys have in common? Yeah, just
they're all dead.
Sorry? They're all dead. Yeah, possible. Yeah. Okay, so what else? What else?
Carsten's still alive, I think.
Carsten's still alive, so they're not all dead. Yeah. But barely. Alright, so I give you a hint, they're dictators. Alright. To make this a little less boring, they all studied law. They even worked kind of, most of them worked as lawyers. So, when I thought about this talk, I thought like I had to translate some of my legal stuff to techie stuff, you know? Like the way you would talk about like different programming language. So, yeah. If you talk about the legal system, you have to think not in terms of, you know, like COBOL or Fortran or something. You have to literally think about stone tablets. Because the code base of those guys is 2,000 years old. We're talking about Roman law. It's still present. We have the thinking mostly is functional. You have large codexes which contain rule sets that should apply or not apply if certain conditions are met. So that's a functional thinking of things. So if you're a lawyer, you would really grasp functional programming quite fast. But the problem is it doesn't really work. It's also a lot of object-oriented thinking in the legal system, especially the duck typing principle. If it talks like, or if it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it is a duck. That's basically what lawyers are doing. They're classifying things. Also, the real problem is that in practice, procedural code is the fare of the day. That's done in the courts. So there's also, like in programming, there's some difference between theory and practice. Alright, so the worst thing about the legal system and being a lawyer is you program and you don't have booleans. Imagine that. No zeros and ones, no true or false. It's more like something is likely to be true. Alright? So, this is why you have to think of those guys as really angry people. Think of a code base 2,000 years old and stuff like this. So, yeah. Alright. All this talk, a guy came up to me after one talk I had with PHP developers, and he told me, this is not necessary, what you're talking about is not necessary, I have a website. And I can recommend it to you. This is where you can, you know, like search for any license you want to know, and it's gonna spit out some information about this license. The only thing is, if you're an engineer, you tend to think about things like that. Yeah, well, it's true or not it's true, or it's false and stuff like this, and sometimes you're missing the big picture. Still, I like the name of the site. Too long didn't read legal. That could be problematic, you know. But I'm trying to give you tonight an overview of the system, and then you can basically judge yourself or think for yourself what's right about open source license and what not. So the first thing is I thought about, when I wrote this presentation, I thought about how often I heard the phrase internationalization is broken. I think I heard it at least 1,000 times in meetups or outside of meetups. But you can't imagine how broken internationalization is in the legal system. It is not existent. It is actually designed not to work. This means that every country, sometimes even cities, have their own legal system. Liechtenstein has a full-fledged legal system, which is very different from the Austrian one or the Swiss one. The Austrian and the German systems are totally different. Well, not totally, but very different. So, oops. One more thing about the concepts behind this, what I'm talking about today is, in the late 80s and the early 90s, lawyers around the world have been faced with a problem called software. It's not a thing, it's not a right, they didn't know what to do with it, and they thought about it and they thought, well, it's like a poem. It's made of words. It's something like an artist would do. So if tonight you're going home, you say to your Schatzi, it's official now, I'm an artist, go make me a sandwich. Alright, but they actually, all around the world, everybody did this. They put the coders, the software, into the artsy part of the legal system. So where the painters are, the guys that do literary work and stuff like this. So this is kind of weird, but everybody did it, and now we have to live with it. And this makes sometimes things about the legal system really, really weird. You see, for example, the most important privilege that the law sees for a developer is to see its name on the software, on a splash screen or somewhere like this. I don't know you, but me, I wrote a lot of stuff I'd rather not see my name on. But yeah, well, everybody's different. So this is why this is important to understand, because I have to stress again about the about the internationalization. If you talk about licenses, you talk about a lot of different systems which are not comparable to what you know. For example, most licenses are written under the influence of US American law. And US American law is totally different from the Austrian law. It's not equal, right? And even the Americans put the software into the artsy part of the legal system, but it is it is called copyright. It's about selling stuff. And in Austria, art is, you know, something not directly related to money. So there are a lot of different things you have to keep in mind if you're talking about licenses in the US and in Austria. All right. So that's enough for the moment from me for introduction into the legal system. I know it's short, but I have little time. Coming to open source licenses. There are basically two big families in open source licenses. The one family is a license that has something that is called copyleft. And the other licenses don't have that. And that's a real big difference and makes handling those things very different. The copyleft licenses are all a bit like the GPL. You heard about this, right? Anybody didn't? Oh, yeah. And the non-copyleft ones are MIT, BSD, Apache, etc., etc. So you might ask, what is copyleft? Copyleft, I think of it myself, is not copyright. That means if you decide to license software under a license that has copyleft, you give up your copyright. You give up the say in how people can use your software. Sounds awful, right? But there's also another part of the copyleft that says that every derivative work, everything that's done with this software, has to be licensed under the GPL as well. So basically, it spawns like a virus, like the measles, right? So, what is a derivative work? What would make the GPL spawn to something else? Well, for example, you have a library in your project that is a GPL licensed. At what point of time can't you leave it closed source if you sell it to a client? That's the question here. As a lot of people know, that's very often in commercial projects you can't open source. Most people say, well, the Free Software Foundations, that's the guy with the long beard, they say that everything that touches the GPL has to be GPL licensed. But touching, I mean, software, touching, software, I don't know, what do they mean with touching? Some engineers, I guess, came up with the idea that if you link something statically, you have to, the license will spawn. Others said, like, if you link dynamically, it won't spawn. But I kind of don't understand that. And I'm pretty sure every judge in the country, at least in Austria, won't understand this either. So this is never going to happen. I think if you do something with a library and the library talks with your piece of software over a defined interface or a protocol, then it is likely not a derivative work. I know this sounds all a bit, you know, awkward and well, the law says derivative work is something that is new and self-contained, something that stands for itself. If it's that, it's not derivative work and you don't have to open source it. But this is a very good example for a legal boolean. There are no decisions on this topic, and you can't know. It's just you're in open waters here. Okay, so I talked a lot of theory now, but let's get some examples. Who in the room has ever developed something with MySQL? Yeah, I thought so. And commercially? Well, some. So can Oracle sue you? What do you think?
I've paid for it.
You've paid for it?
Yeah.
Somebody who didn't?
What was the question? Sorry.
So you developed something with Oracle, a commercial project, you shipped it to the client, and you had like a community license?
Not Oracle, MySQL.
Sorry?
MySQL, yes, Oracle no.
No, I mean, sorry about that. I mean MySQL, yes.
Yeah.
Alright, so there are a lot of people who will tell you from my former profession that Oracle actually can sue you. Because if you didn't open source it, did you?
You mean Oracle or MySQL?
No, I mean the project you did with MySQL for your client.
No, MySQL.
Yeah, okay, so that's basically, you know, MySQL is in the community version is under GPL license. So that means if you do something, a derivative work from a MySQL, you would have to GPL it too. That means you would have to open source it.
Depends on your definition of derivative.
Exactly. That's why that's what I wanted to hear, right? All right. So, is it a derivative work? Why not?
I did not change MySQL.
Yeah, well, but still, the definition of the Free Software Foundation is everything that touches the GPL is GPL. How did you link it? Like, you know, like static or dynamic? Never mind. You know, so I think if you think in terms of a protocol, if you think of a defined interface, you're on the safe side. Because you said, yeah, I used MySQL, but I could have used something different. It's not important for my project. I could have, maybe I used an ORM, and I could just plug in another backend. So at that point, I think it's not a derivative work, you're right. But what about the drivers? Did you use the MySQL drivers? Yeah, I understand. But actually, those drivers from MySQL, they're also GPL licensed. And usually you link them directly in your program. And this could, in fact, lead to a GPL infection. All right, so one thing that is maybe important about this is also that if you do not distribute it, if you have it on your server and your client is working on your server, then this is not so important because you don't ship it. But there's also something called AGPL, that's the Affero GPL, and that extends the duty to open source the stuff, even if you're providing services over networks. So, well, I'm talking about MongoDB here. Somebody work with MongoDB? All right. So you see, but I think those guys at MongoDB, they're thinking a bit like you and me, because they license their drivers as under Apache license. And an Apache license is not a copyleft license, so you can close source it. So that means those guys think if you do some server plugin for the database server or something like this, you have to open source it. And if you're just using MongoDB over the driver, you can have projects that are closed source. Right? Myself, I proposed, or I thought about this when I was working on a project with a graph database. I don't know if you know Neo4j. I personally like it. It is dual licensed. It has a GPL license for the community server and a commercial license for the paid one. And I had a small project for a client and I didn't want to buy the license because it's very, very expensive. And the client didn't want to buy it at that point of time. So what I did was, Jesus. Alright. What I did was I wrote some middleware, I wrote a plugin that I open sourced, and everything else I had closed source. So that's the way to go around this. I have to move along very fast. Non-copyleft licenses are very common. It's the Apache licenses, etc. If you are somebody who thinks about dual licensing software to customers, there are basically two ways to go. Again, two ways. You can do a commercial and strong copyleft license, or a commercial and BSD style license. In one way you would need lawyers, in the other way you won't. That's what I tell you. The problem about BSD and commercial license is that somebody could take your code and use it for its own project, close source it, but there are ways to cope with this. This is called free riding. It's if it's competition, you can fight them. Alright. I will basically skip around this a bit, but this is something that is most important for all authors of open source licenses. It's about liability. If I do something wrong, do I have to pay? And usually, you don't have to, because normally this is a donation. You give something for free, and there is by law no or a very limited liability in Austrian law and in German law. But again, you can't exclude liability for gross negligence or malice if you want something bad to happen, or if you're so stupid that something is about to happen and everybody would have known it. That's bad definition, but takes it. And also, you can't exclude liability for death or injury. So you will be liable for this, no matter what. There's this famous phrase, this software is as is. This doesn't work in Europe. It doesn't. But also I have to tell you, like, if somebody else takes your life, he's also culpable, and maybe more culpable than you, so basically he's fucked and you're not. Something that is, I think, important for you IoT guys, if you are bundling open source software, which you alter or not alter with hardware, and you sell it, you are liable for anything that goes wrong with this machine. If you're not excluded correctly in a contract or something like this, so this is something you should really take extra care if you are working with this. Okay, I think I need to stop there, and I just want to mention that there are a lot of other issues out there in the legal system, basically trademark system, which sometimes is a lot more complex than one thinks. The issue with free riding, if you have somebody stealing your code, this is something that can help you. And also the issue of patents, where I could talk a whole evening about it, but I don't want to. And that's it. Thank you. And if you have questions, go ahead.
Any questions?
Regarding the liability, what if I release something under the Creative Commons Europe? So basically, I'm waiving all copyright and put it directly into the public domain.
Well, you know, the reason I can say with some confidence that you will be liable for malice or gross negligence and cause of injury or death is because that's a European directive. So there's no way around it. No matter what license.
Well, but it's not really a license. You waive all copyright.
Sorry?
You waive all copyright.
Yeah, but that's not the legal system. I think will not allow you to waive your copyright other than, you know, like a copyleft or something. You're still the author, and if something goes wrong, you're still culpable. Yeah, I have to maybe stress something again, like if somebody else uses your library and doesn't test it right, you know, for use cases, he is the main culpable, not you. But think of Heartbeat. I mean, that has induced a lot of costs. I don't know if the guy got sued, but I would have. I really would have.
Can I ask about Java? I think that Java is GPL. Every program which I write in Java, for example Oracle Java, because Oracle Java is the most popular, should be GPL.
I don't know. Last I looked, it was licensed under the binary blah blah license, which has, I think, no copyleft. I program in Java too, and I think at that point you're quite on the safe side. As long as, you know, like true, you're doing your stuff in Java and you compile it to bytecode, and then you have, you know, like a jar, but the jar actually doesn't link Java in any way. It's just running on a virtual machine. I don't think really a language like Java couldn't afford to do GPL, everything spawns to GPL because you couldn't do any reasonable project with it. To my knowledge, all the programming language have a license that allows you to close source your code. Actually, I will look into that, but if you're right, I will stop coding Java. Yes,
I have one more question to regarding liability here.
Yeah, okay, I'm going back to you. Yes.
So you said before that as-is constructions don't work in Europe.
Well, the problem is it's even worse. If you do something in Europe that says I'm excluded from everything, this clause will be killed. So at this moment, you're liable for everything. I mean, not if it's a donation, if it's just open source software, you're liable as stated in the law. So your line of as is doesn't change a thing if you're donating the software, but if you're selling the software, open source software, and you use that phrase, you will be liable for everything.
But so if I use one of the famous licenses, yeah, BSD license or GPL, they all provide a waiver of liability.
Yes.
So you mean this does not count in Europe?
No,
that's not my experience.
No, I understand what you mean, but technically, from a legal standpoint, it is not possible to exclude all license in Europe, all right? And also, trying something like this will make the clause of the contract invalid. Again, this is not being in the courts, so I can't be totally sure about this. Neither can you, neither can anybody else, but as long as you're just providing this as open source and you're donating it to the public domain, this is you have a privilege because a donation, in German you say, einem geschenkten Gaul schaut man nicht ins Maul. This is a privilege in liability, which is basically what I said, like you will be still liable for a death if it's your fault. You know?
So what you are saying is, if I write software GPL for robotics or for nuclear reactors
Yes.
or aircraft, I should better do it.
You can't get out of this at all. If you're somebody who writes software for a nuclear reactor, you have enough money to contact a lawyer, and they will tell you the clause that you can use to at least exclude liability for normal negligence. You know, if you just do some memory leak or something like this, and if you donate it to the to the public domain, this is a donation, and you will only be culpable for gross negligence. And this is really nobody in the room here will do gross negligence because you have to be very stupid to do it.
No, it could be an oversight.
No, an oversight will not be gross negligence. Gross negligence is like you had to know that this is going wrong, and you kind of not overlooked it, but you said, well, I don't know.
That's a fact, because you know we're writing now non-deterministic programs.
Yes.
Autonomous car driving. So I'm the famous guy who put something on GPL and BMW takes it. And
sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just making an example. I'm
Yes.
a famous guy in autonomous car driving software.
Yes.
I put it on the GPL and BMW uses my software. And here's the first deadly accident.
Well, in that case, as a lawyer on your side, I would state that BMW has to test the software extensively to make it work. Yes, but that's true, because you write a library that has a lot of purposes. You know, like there's some machine learning included, and there's some heuristics that work, and you can't really be sure that it works 100% in all times, all right? So next time somebody uses that library for a certain purpose, he has to test it extensively, and if he doesn't, he's liable, not you.
It's about the testing extent.
You know,
It's not deterministic, so you can't write even test sheets for this.
I didn't get that.
You can. I mean, since most of this is non-deterministic and just reflects certain behaviors,
Yeah, but
you can't easily test it.
But you can be. I'm not an engineer in the car business, but they won't use stuff that fails. They will test it extensively, and if it is, like you say, non-deterministic, they might not be able to use it because they feel the liability. That's the way it sometimes goes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
One last question.
I would like to ask the question, for example, I do something for my customer on LifeRay. LifeRay, it's a portal solution which is a GPL license.
Yes.
It's okay if I do it over the community edition and sell it as a product to my client. So portal which is configured, maybe some plugin I install in it.
So basically you have a server, you install the GPL, not AGPL?
It's a lesser GPL.
Okay, LGPL. You install it on the server, and your client uses the server of the network?
Yes, configure
you're on the safe side.
Yes?
Yes. You don't have to open source it. Liability is always, you know, like...
And some plugin, if I create some plugin or some portlet or these things.
Come again?
If I make some portlet or some code which run inside the portal.
Two things. Is it a derivative work? Most likely in that case. And second, do you distribute it to your customer? Do you ship it? Do you ship like, you know, like a digital copy, or do you ship like a CD or something? If you do that, yeah, you have to open source it.
So I think we should stop here. Let's have a round of applause for Stefan.